Have you ever reached your breaking point? I mean, finally asked for help, and their response was so useless that you thought, you know what, forget it, I'll just do it myself. And that is probably not because of actual incompetence. What we're looking at here is a very specific type of manipulation called weaponized incompetence. So right here and now, we're going to put a stop to this nonsense. And I'm going to show you how to recognize it, why it might work so well on you in particular, and how you can stop carrying the entire load. My name is Christina, and I help people get back to some sense of normalcy after relationships where weaponized incompetence is just one more insult to add to the pile of injuries you'll encounter daily. And if this all sounds familiar and you're feeling stuck or unable to move on, take my free quiz to help you figure out why. Links in the description. So now let's explore some quick examples of weaponized incompetence to make sure we're on the same page. So there's the wife or girlfriend who claims she'll burn down the kitchen if she cooks because she can't be bothered and really just wants to go out for dinner or be served by you. She may even go so far as to start a small fire just to prove her point. Or there's the husband who claims if he does laundry, he'll ruin all the clothes. Test him, and you'll absolutely be buying a new wardrobe. Not because he can't figure out a basic appliance, but because if he proves he can do it once, then he will have to do it again. And this even happens in the workplace. So imagine you have a highly intelligent coworker who can't seem to figure out how to work the printer. So the boss assigns all that admin stuff to you, even though you're at the same level as your coworker. So how do we know these things are weaponized incompetence and not legitimate incompetence? Because it's true that some people just aren't good at certain things, even things that are easy to everyone else. I have a weird incompetency myself. It's ironing. And yeah, I know, it's not exactly a skill that should take years to master. Yet still to this day, I suck at ironing. I even took a fashion design class in high school, which was basically just sewing. And I consistently lost points because of my terrible ironing. So it is possible to struggle with basic things I know firsthand. But here's how to tell the difference between an actual incompetency and a weaponized one. And it all lies in the give and take. So for example, I wouldn't dump a pile of clothes on someone else to iron just because I was bad at it. And let's even say my partner was some extreme ironing champion. And oh yes, that is a thing. And is that actually a guy ironing on a surfboard? Okay, nevertheless, if that was my guy, maybe we would agree that he'd handle the ironing and I would chip in some other way. It's okay to be bad at things. It's okay to know your limitations. But it's not okay to dump everything on somebody else. And of course, this looks different in different households, because clearly in my imaginary household, ironing takes place in a river. That's pretty different. But the share of responsibilities doesn't have to be chore for chore, as long as everyone agrees it's equitable. But the kind of weaponized incompetence we're talking about here is not equitable. And if you've ever dealt with anything like this, let's talk about it. I want to see your most frustrating example of weaponized incompetence in the comments. I'm sure I won't be able to find a winner per se, but I'll pin one of the more outrageous examples at the top of the comment section for everyone to see. Okay, so now that you're thinking about your own experience, you might be getting a little fired up. And I totally get that because this is an infuriating topic. But I've got to be the bearer of bad news because it does get worse from here. Even though each example is probably just mild to moderate irritation, there are two big problems with weaponized incompetence that make it worse than it seems at the surface. So for one, it's typically not just one thing, like ironing or doing the dishes. It's everything the other person doesn't feel like doing. And so that load falls on you. And the second problem with weaponized incompetence is its manipulation. And if it's widespread in the relationship, it says a lot about how the other person views your standing in relation to theirs. So for example, if they mostly can't seem to handle the mundane tasks that absolutely no one likes doing, they're clearly not that inadequate or unqualified. They're avoiding those tasks because they think that they are superior. And this becomes obvious when the person doing all the things gets sick or injured, because even then, the stuff just piles up and no one ends up doing it. There's no sense of partnership in relationships like these. And if we zoom out on relationships where weaponized incompetence is a real problem, you'll see even more evidence that that one person feels superior to the other. From little things like always being the one to control the remote to bigger things like absolutely controlling shared finances. So why does this tactic work so well on some people? Well, if someone in your life is using this tactic against you, they've probably recognized something in you that's told them this might work. And that thing they've recognized could be hyper-independence, conflict avoidance, or a combination of both things. Because if you grew up with the belief that it wasn't safe to rely on anyone else, that if you wanted something done, you had to do it yourself, then you already carry this wound. You probably overfunction. You pick up the slack and you handle more than your share. And not because you love being the responsible one, but because somewhere deep down, you just don't trust anyone else to show up for you. So now imagine what happens when someone manipulative spots that. They see you handling everything. And even if they acknowledge that you should really ask for help or share the load, they'll feed your hyper-independence behind the scenes. So they make sure that when you finally do reach that vulnerable point where you ask for help, they swoop in with a performance of helplessness that leaves you thinking, you see, this is why I don't ask for help. This is why I just do everything myself. And that's the evil genius behind this tactic. It doesn't just dump the responsibility back on you, it reinforces the exact wound that keeps you stuck in that cycle of doing it all. And this is exactly how weaponized incompetence lands a place among the most devious manipulation tactics, because on some level, they have you believing that it's all your idea and you're in control. But if your main problem is conflict avoidance, you may actually know that this person is manipulating you, and you just find it's easier to do the task yourself than to argue about it. Because if you call them out, you're nagging. But then if you let it slide, there you are carrying the load alone again. And over time, that constant choice between confrontation and exhaustion really wears you down. So how do you actually spot weaponized incompetence in real time? Here are some of the biggest giveaways. Their mistakes are suspiciously consistent. So they don't mess up across the board. Their incompetence is clearly strategic. It covers the same category of chores or responsibility over and over again until you stop asking. And let's face it, most of the things they're avoiding can easily be learned over time. And hey, even I could learn to iron if I really wanted to. To be clear, I don't. But I know I could because I'm not incapable of learning things. But that's exactly what people want you to believe with weaponized incompetence, that they're literally incapable of learning. And if you stop and think for a second, if this were actually true, that they were literally incapable of learning, they'd probably be entirely useless human beings, right? And they're usually not. We're usually talking about relatively capable people who may even be high performers in other areas of their lives. But 30, 40 years later, somehow they still can't seem to master the art of boiling water. So the next dead giveaway is they exaggerate their helplessness. So it's not something like, oh, I'm just not great at this. It's, I will absolutely burn the house down if I try to cook. Because if they were to simply say, you know what, that's not one of my strengths, then you'd expect them to give it a go. But instead, they have to take the worst case scenario to deter you from even thinking about asking to do the thing. And what's worse is that if you try to force them to do the thing, they will take it to the worst case scenario so that you never ask again. So another dead giveaway is that they magically become competent when it benefits them. The person who can't figure out a washing machine somehow has zero trouble programming a smart TV, booking flights, or playing complex video games. Which goes back to the point that they aren't the incompetent human beings they'd have to be in order for the nonsense they've been feeding you to be true. So another dead giveaway is their incompetence creates more work for you. So you end up fixing their mistakes, redoing the task, or just doing it yourself next time. So yes, in this scenario, you might get to gloat because you were better at something, but you may not even realize that they're the ones winning here. And one more thing to look for is within you. You start to notice a pattern in your own reactions. So every time you ask for help, you end up frustrated and thinking it's easier if I just do it myself. And that thought is the red flag. And that's the cycle that they're counting on too, because it's a triple win for them. They get to get out of doing the work. It becomes your idea to do it all, and they get an emotional response from you in the process. It's a win, win, win. So now let's talk about why you might be especially vulnerable to weaponized incompetence. If you believe you can't rely on anyone else, chances are that came from a wound, a childhood or past experience that taught you, I can't trust anyone else to show up for me. So you learned to overfunction and you carry the load. You don't delegate because it's easier and usually better if you do it yourself. And you end up minimizing your own needs. You carry too much and you see that as a strength. So you think, okay, I can handle this. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I've got it. But every once in a while, you're human. So you hit a breaking point and you finally ask for help. And that's a vulnerable moment, whether you realize it or not. And that's when the manipulative partner steps in. And trust me, this type of partner isn't here to help you, but they're here to confirm that wound that you're carrying around, to leave you thinking, you know what, this just proves the point, I cannot rely on anyone. And the more overloaded you get, the more you lean into your independence, which means that cycle never breaks. So what do you actually do when you realize this is happening? So first, you've got to call it what it is. It's a tactic, not a mistake. If you keep treating it like harmless forgetfulness, you'll keep picking up the slack and they'll keep letting you. So another thing that's helpful is resisting the urge to just fix it, because that's the trap. Every time you do it yourself to save time or avoid conflict, you're reinforcing that exact cycle that keeps you overloaded. So instead, hold a boundary. Say it very clearly. This is your responsibility. If you don't do it, it won't get done. And then let it not get done if you have to. And that moment is going to be really uncomfortable for you, but it's also the only way to stop the performance of helplessness from working. Because let's be clear, this isn't just about dirty dishes, laundry, or ironing. This is manipulation that chips away at your trust and erodes equality in relationships. This is what's at the core of many imbalances in relationships. And it will thrive as long as we excuse it. But even though each instance may seem harmless, the real problem is that it is strategic manipulation. And you absolutely deserve better than that. You deserve a real partnership and not some staged performance. So if you were in a relationship like this in the past, but yet you still find yourself thinking about it and getting infuriated by the behavior, there's one thing that's keeping you stuck. And I talk about that and how to get past it in this video right here. But before you click away, be sure to give this video a like if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.